Recently, the Vice Chairman Selva, confirmed that Russia is in direct violation of the INF Treaty for intermediate-range nuclear forces. What should be our response?
I happen to believe that we are not using a tool here in terms of taking an examination of what they have done. We should call them on it, and we have not really been doing that. And it is clear that it is contributing to additional problems in terms of the deployment. What it does to create a sense of unease in Central and Eastern Europe among the Baltics, and then the Russians blame us for tit for tat. But the bottom line is they have, from what I've seen, they have been violating it, and especially up in Kaliningrad, and so it is one of the things that we have to, we should call them on it.
I think Putin is a great opportunist. He looks at vacuums and seizes opportunities and then kind of sees what happens. And if he succeeds and if he's not resisted, he then does a little bit more. And if he continues to succeed and is not resisted, he does a little bit more. So we need to, when he, whether it's in terms of agreements, when it's in terms of destabilizing his neighbors, whether it's in terms of his own force buildup, we need to match him not just by calling him on it, but also taking concrete steps to counter the benefit that he thinks he achieves by these actions, and then some, so that, in fact, he pays a price. So we've got to counter in our diplomacy. We need to call him on it, but I think we need to look at what we need to do to counter the capability so it does not only does it not produce an advantage for him, but it actually results in his situation being worse. I think that's the only way you're going to deter this kind of behavior.
And do you have any specific suggestions, Mr. Hadley, as to how we can increase the price for Mr. Putin?
Well, one of the things we could do in terms of missile defense and make it clear that, you know, he gets, that we are able to counter that cruise missile capability and deploy against it if need be. That's one. But again, this is the task I would then give General Mattis. So how do we counter this? Deprive it of military utility and impose a price.
If your analysis of Mr. Putin is correct, which is consistent with other experts that I've heard on Russia, then given his interest in interfering in our elections, if we do not have a robust bipartisan response to that, what would you expect him to do?
He'll do more of it. I mean, this was the testimony that the Congress heard yesterday. And certainly we need to figure out what was done and have a political diplomatic response. But you know, the thing that I feel is lost in this debate, it's the old fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. If we do not mobilize to harden our our electoral infrastructure to make sure that it is safe and impervious to cyber penetrations, whether by Russia or anybody else, shame on us. We should never be in a position where we have this concern that an outside power could manipulate our electoral process.
Thank you. Madam Secretary.
Well, I think that we have to remember that he's a KGB agent and somebody that knows how to use propaganda and knows how to play what I would say, a weak hand in a very strong way. And while it is sad that we have to kind of return to the kind of language that we used during the Cold War, I think we have to be more vigilant. And we have to build I happen to agree with what NATO has been doing in terms of moving forces around and showing our willingness. I obviously agree on the missile defense system. But I also think that we have to understand that he has one goal, which is to disaggregate what is the European Union, that they really do not want that to exist. That cannot be our goal, so that we are helping him in that. We have to keep the sanctions on. We have to use every tool that we have and recognize that we have the strength to do something about it. And I think that it's always hard in diplomacy in terms of finding the areas where you can agree, because there are some areas on the Middle East that we've been doing things together, and then find the areas where we have to push back, and we have not done that enough. And so I think we need to be tough and recognize what's been going on here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.